Hello and welcome to the Political Millennial. Today we are going to be talking about, well, really we're going to be returning to Biden's border crisis. We're going to be spending a good amount of time talking about what's going on across the border, what's happening around the border, because it's a big issue. If you haven't heard about it, you're going to hear about it today. Also, this happened while I was writing this outline. NBC has just decided to cancel the Golden Globes for 2022, possibly indefinitely. They're hoping there will be a return in 2023. Yep, Hollywoke is ruining the movie business. Also, I'm gonna have some exciting news to announce eventually. I can't talk about it quite yet, but it's definitely exciting, and it means that we are moving in the right direction. This is great. Also, I want to tell you we do have a Patreon now. You might have heard me talk about this once or twice before. If you like what we're doing or appreciate what we're doing here at the Political Millennial, which is trying to bring America's youth back to common sense thinking in politics, and should your heart tell you, or should your heart feel like you want to help support us here, please do. But again, please don't feel any sort of pressure to contribute. This is just an option for you. You can also do that on Anchor, which is where this podcast is hosted. You can find a link to Anchor, the Anchor page down below in the description. Thank you all so much for listening and tuning in. I can't begin to tell you how much it really means to me, the few of you who do come and listen. We're going to get started. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Connor Womble. I am the Political Millennial. So, a return to Biden's border crisis. I figured I would go along with the alliteration that the Biden dictatorship, the Biden regime likes to go with, because, it sounds good. And that's why they do it. It helps you remember things. So Biden's border crisis. Migrants are just continuing to flow over the border from countries like Guatemala, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, and El Salvador. So there also, I heard South Africa and what was it? Uzbekistan, maybe? I think those were also two other countries that the Border Patrol had intercepted people who from where they were coming. Those are the countries they came from. But apparently, as a government, the United States has decided to basically immediately grant asylum to three of these countries, which are Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela. Which, two of those, really I can understand why immediately, because there are some really bad situations going on in two of those, which would be Haiti and Venezuela. Both of those countries are a wreck, but Cuba, I don't think they're as much of a wreck as the other two, but they're still a communist, fascist regime, and which it feels like we're trending toward, doesn't it? That's not just me. There's other people out there who feel that way. I'm absolutely sure of it. But yeah, so we are automatically granting most people from these countries asylum. And really it's a good thing for them and for us in a way, but the concept of this is just a little messed up. Like, the people coming from these other countries that are also having very serious problems, not to the point of Venezuela or Haiti, which are just not such great places to live right now. But the concept that we would just grant these people asylum almost immediately, it's just a little messed up. Asylum is really meant to be granted on a case-by-case basis, depending on what you're coming from, where you're coming from, if that area is being heavily affected by different factors such as communism, fascism, terrorism, all these isms, right? But now people from these other countries are just really being turned away Well, at least that's what the government wants you to think, that they're being turned away, but the numbers do not support that, as I'm sure you've seen. But my question really about this is, can't these people just say, like, a lot of them don't have paperwork of any kind because the countries, again, are a mess. So can't they just say they're from a certain country and be granted asylum? Wouldn't the coyotes tell them to do that and just not present any sort of paperwork except for maybe like a credit card or something? I don't know. Do they have credit cards in these countries? I'm sure they do. But their systems just aren't up to par in the U.S., you could, I guess, say. But according to Fox News and the Biden regime, really, I think I'm going to start calling the Biden administration a regime, because they're not really behaving democratically. I don't know if you've noticed that, but all these executive orders sure don't lend themselves to democracy, do they? They're directives to the country, directives being a nice word for what they are. But according to the Biden regime and Fox News, the main countries that people are being sent back to are Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Colombia. And the other two countries, they've only come across a few people, from South Africa and then Uzbekistan. And definitely more South American countries. Like, the people are coming from all over. That's really what I'm getting at. But can the president just not be honest in any form or fashion? This is what we need to ask ourselves. Is everything coming out from the Biden regime, the dictatorship, is it just all lies? Because we keep seeing them present facts, quote, air quote, facts, and then it turns out that these facts or figures are just false. They're just not true. The numbers do not support that the claim that anyone is being deported at this point. And we can see this through the numbers being reported by the Border Patrol, right? So the number of illegal encounters from the Border Patrol in 2021, which it's alarmingly high. We're on track for basically 2 million encounters, and I'm not even sure if we've had that number before. I'd have to do some research into that, but I'm not so sure we've reached the 2 million illegal encounters mark. But in 2021, so far, right, this is the beginning of May that this number was reported. 551,614 illegal encounters, right? In 2020, which doesn't really count for much because of the pandemic that happened, there were 405,036 encounters over the entire course of the year. So we've already beat that by 150,000, which is incredible if you really think about it. In 2019, the total number of illegal encounters was 859,501. In 2018, 404,142. In 2017, there were 310,531 encounters. So you can see that over time there has been this steady increase, but this year there is just an explosion of migrants, and there's really only one reason why this would, well, actually, okay, I'll give them two reasons. There's two reasons. People who wanted to leave last year during the pandemic but couldn't because of immigration restrictions put on by the Trump administration and by literally every country in the world. So don't give me that racist bull crap. That's not what happened, and we know it. Because we're seeing the Biden administration do the same thing, right? We've already seen them do the same thing with India. They've put travel restrictions on India. But it's strange how there have been no uproars by the media, except Fox News and probably Newsmax, who have mentioned it, but there is no outrage there because conservatives see the need for that to happen, so you don't have spread of virus. But over time, over the past 5 years, we've seen the steady increase. And there's two reasons why this year could be worse than the last year. People who wanted to leave last year but couldn't, are leaving this year. And number two, Biden said that they should come on over because we're just going to let them in. This is just absolutely ridiculous in policy. Like, this is a crazy policy. And they're claiming that the border's closed, but if you watch Fox News, and I know I'm saying Fox News a lot, but that's who really has been reporting on this, and not much else, except for the Epic Times, maybe. Well, not maybe, they have. I also used them as a source for this podcast. But they, over the past few days, have been down in Del Rio, Texas, which is probably like 6 or 7 hours from where I am. And migrants at this one location where there's a low water crossing are just flowing, just non-stop flowing from 10 a.m. until sundown. They're just non-stop flowing over the border across the Rio Grande. There's no stopping them, right? And there's actually this single, probably cartel member he's got a mask and his whole head is covered. When you think of Taliban women who you can only see their eyes, that's the sort of headdress that he's wearing. Covers the top of his head and basically everything except his eyes down to his neck. And he's probably a cartel member. And I saw him yesterday and I saw him today. But he's getting within 15 or 20 feet of these sheriffs, these Texas Texas state troopers, Border Patrol agents. He's coming within 15 to 20 feet of them, and they're doing nothing to stop him from bringing these people across. And it's just shocking to see. Honestly, it's just shocking, right? But we see these numbers inflating because of this activity. We now have, I think the official number was 22,507 or 4 or somewhere in there. But over 22,500 migrant children are being held by Health and Human Services right now. But the Biden regime will tell you that we don't have that amount of people in Border Patrol custody. And there's a reason they're saying it like that. Because as soon as these children are picked up and taken account of, they are moved immediately over to Health and Human Services, so the Border Patrol numbers are not inflated, which is lying to the public, right? They are lying to our faces. Right now, we're having over 700 people illegally cross the border per day. Every day. It's an average of 700. On bad weather days or high river water days, there will be less. But on good days, such as yesterday, there's going to be more, which really drives up that average. But an average of over 700 people per day. And those are just the people who are turning themselves in. You have to realize this. While these people are crossing, there are others at other points throughout Texas and Arizona, New Mexico, California, across the entire southern border that are crossing and not being caught. We have really no idea of the real number of people who are crossing our border and just walking in because our Border Patrol officials are stretched so thin right now that state troopers are having to help. Health and Human Services are sending people out. I even follow this girl on Twitter who was there helping out. It's ridiculous. And what's even worse was I checked the Border Patrol website today, and it says that they're hiring, and then you check each individual separate section of the agency, and it says that they've reached their max for hiring this month. Maybe this quarter. One or the other. But we're stretched so thin that we're not able to take account of the actual number of people who are coming into our country. And that's not a good thing. because the good people are the ones turning themselves in. Those are the people that the cartel are presenting to the Border Patrol. Not the bad people who are murderers, rapists, drug dealers, cartel members, gang members. We don't see them because they don't want us to see them. You have to realize this. The people you might be on the side thinking that all of this immigration is a good thing because these people are reaching freedom, and that is a good thing. By itself, that's a great thing. But they're doing it the wrong way. To the point where there's so many people doing it, we have no record of probably half of the people coming in. Because we find people on farms, hiding in houses. There were 90 people in one house in Houston, and that was human trafficking, clearly. Hopefully nothing worse than them just trying to move these people to a certain location and let them go. But we all know that the gangs and cartels are not full of good people. They're not doing this for good reasons. They're making money and moving product. The real number is much, much higher than that 551,000. Much higher. We've had over 1 million people come into the country already this year. And if we could keep track of them and they all got visas, hey, that's a good thing. America is a melting pot. We need people because the jobs report was not good. We need people to fill those jobs, but they have to do so legally. Otherwise, it puts a burden on every single citizen. You and me, my parents, my in-laws, your parents, yourself. It's not a good thing to not have track of these people. It really isn't. It just not. But okay, so back to the actual crossing situations. Fox News. I was just watching them. I happened to see this. There was a guy, a correspondent down in Del Rio, he speaks fluent Spanish, and he was asking these people where they're coming from and what they're doing. He went on and he asked this one guy who had literally just stepped foot on U.S. soil. And this is a man, a full-grown man, right? And he asks this man, "Why'd you come here?" And he just broke down and cried. He started to try an answer, but then he just broke down and cried. And it was heartbreaking, and it was also a kind of joyous in a way, but we don't really know why that man was crying, right? We don't really know why, and it would be better if we did. But we have to ask ourselves, they're all, most of the people who are crossing at this point end up becoming emotional at some point. And the human in me wants to say they're crying because they believe they've reached the greatest country in the world throughout human history. That's what I want to think. But the rationalist in me, it skews to the other side. It goes the other direction. So I have to ask myself and present this question to you. Are they crying because they ended up being used by the cartels? Are they crying because they've ultimately been handed over to the authorities? Did they not expect that? Did they think they were going to walk in and just be able to go off and get a job and build a family? Were they expecting to cross the border and just live a normal life? Like they didn't think they were going to be captured at all? Obviously, I want to think it's that first option, that they're here and they're just so happy to actually reach the promised land. But a part of me just thinks they were lied to, and they thought they were going to be walking in and everything was going to be normal for them. They were just crossing a river after all, right? This is the greatest country in the world, and there are people trying to get into the U.S. from all over the world. Like I said earlier, They're coming from Europe, Western Asia, South Africa. And most of these people are going to have good intentions. They want to be good. I absolutely believe that. And I think most Americans do, right? Most of these people want to start a family. They want to reunite with their family. They want to find work. And they want to pursue and live out the American dream. Just like you and me. We all want the same things as humans. Well, the vast majority of us. The general U.S. population absolutely supports this. We can see that through polling and just basic human nature. We want what's best for our fellow human. But, that being said, as humans, there are bad people in this world. And for that reason, we have laws and we have processes to make sure we know who's who and we know what people are doing. They should have presented themselves at a port of entry. But if we're being honest, right, if we're being rationalists and we're thinking instead of feeling, we know that to the Biden regime, the Biden dictatorship and the Biden administration, we know that the entire border to them is a port of entry. They don't care. They don't care one bit where people come in or go to, because they're betting that these people, when the regime makes it legal for illegal immigrants and people with visas to vote, and make no mistake, it really seems like this is where the Democratic Party's policy is heading. That's why they don't want the voter ID laws, because it hinders their ability to put that legislation in place. But once they establish this, and people who aren't citizens can vote, who have visas or have been granted immunity, that they're hoping that they'll vote Democratic. Even though the policies that the Democrats are currently putting in place right now through executive orders, most of this is not legal legislation that they're passing. That's why why Biden is putting in place these executive orders, these directives to the nation. They're not law, no matter how they present them. It's not law. It is temporary policy of the current administration. But these people who are fleeing to the United States, fleeing for their lives, for their livelihoods, for their families, they're fleeing the policies that the Democrats are putting in place. How ironic is that? Is that not crazy? It's so weird that the Democrats think these people are going to come here and vote for them when they're putting in socialist, communist policies to make America more like the place that these people are coming from. But I will tell you, because I am human, to see that man just break down and cry on national television, whether he knew it or not, it was hard. Anytime, I think it goes for anyone. When you see someone else cry, it strikes a certain chord in your heart, right? You don't want people to be sad. You don't want to be sad. And for that reason, you don't want other people to be sad. I can't imagine the atrocities these people have been living through. Like in Venezuela, a single gallon of water, if they can even access it, is hundreds of thousands of pesos or whatever they call their currency. The inflation there is ridiculous, and this is one of the former richest countries on the earth. They have oil reserves like nobody's business. Venezuela used to be a prosperous nation, and some of that is still left over. You can see it in the people's clothing who are crossing the border from Venezuela. But the current president, whatever his frickin' name is, I can't remember, he's a nightmare for the country. A nightmare. I can't imagine what it's like living in a place like that. We think it's bad here. It's horrible there. It's a nightmare in these other countries that people are fleeing from. They don't have any sort of protection from the law, from law enforcement, from cartels, drug dealers, anybody. You can name anybody with nefarious intent, and these people are scared of them because they're all over the place. It must be horrifying to live in one of these countries that these people are coming from. It just has to be scary. There's no other word for it but scary. But no matter how many times the Biden regime says the border is closed, we can clearly see that it's not. It won't stop these people from coming. If they're just going to be taken down, their names will be taken down. They'll be given some sort of representative number, maybe, if we even get that far. And then they'll just be released into the United States. Or if they're somebody who has a proven track record of not being such a good person, they'll be sent back. But those are the only people. The percentage of that happening to one of these people that cross the border is so small that we're just missing probably thousands of people who are not here for good reasons, who we just happen to catch, right? Because most of these people are evading arrest by the Border Patrol and other agencies and departments that are there trying to help out. We've got to get this situation under control. It's like the situation in Texas is bad. We don't even hear about the other states, but you know that they're having the same issues. Texas is where the major problems are occurring right now. But we've got to get it under control. Biden, Kamala, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing to help this situation? Nothing. You're doing nothing. And it's going to hurt the United States. We have to get it under control, not just for our country's sake, but for these people's lives' sakes. Women and children are being raped. I know you've heard about this on the news. It's all over the place. It's so, they're coming from bad places, but for this to continue in the United States, they have to be even more scared that can happen here. And it's all because of the overflow. We can't keep track of everybody. But once they get into these holding facilities, they're being abused by other detainees, people who we didn't catch being bad people. We didn't have a record of them being a person of nefarious intent, right? And they're committing crimes within our holding facilities. Children are being brought to the U.S. by coyotes and just dropped off on the riverbanks. They're bringing them across in boats and just dropping them off. Or they're being led in by the coyotes and just being left behind because they were too slow to keep up with the group. And then we find 5 children on some farm in Del Rio, close to Del Rio in Texas, which is, one of the hot spots for this border crisis and for the crossings right now. And they were just left alone in this strange country with no food, no water, and one of them, an 11-month-old little girl, was naked, crawling around. Like, why was this child naked? Has anyone even asked that? That doesn't seem so good to me, that the others were clothed, and this one 11-month-old baby was just naked on a farm somewhere that they don't even know where they are. Wasn't even old enough to walk. She was crawling. But here we are waiting for the Border Czar, co-dictator Harris, to actually do something about it, since Biden pushed it onto her plate because he doesn't currently have the brain power to figure it out. And we're seeing Kamala do nothing. She's taking conference calls on Zoom and just video calls with these leaders of foreign countries. And you think they're going to do something? We already had a system in place that was working, and the Biden regime took it down. And that is what led us to this point. Where are you, Kamala? Where are you? What are you doing right now? It seems like you're doing nothing to solve this problem. What makes you think it's okay to leave your country to suffer like this? To leave these people to suffer like this? That's what's happening. They're not prospering right now. Whether you think giving them your book is helping them or not, it's not. They're struggling in the United States, where they thought they would get freedom and safety, and they're being abused and raped within our facilities. What are you doing to solve this? Nothing. Nothing. You're probably just chilling with second gentleman, whatever his name is. I thought you were supposed to be Mamala, right? I thought you were supposed to be this caring person, even though you've put thousands of black people in jail for minor abuse or minor crimes, misdemeanors. I thought you were supposed to be this caring person, but clearly you're not, because you care more about your reputation and dictator Biden's reputation than these thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. Then, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous that we're at this point. And it's only going to get worse as the weather gets better. It'll get real hot, but that's not going to stop people. It's not. Aren't moms, since you're Mamala, or I don't know why you even got that nickname. You don't care. But I thought moms, I'm sorry. It's a recent change. Birthing people are supposed to be caring. I thought y'all, people who have children are supposed to care more than people who don't have children. It's supposed to have some effect on you. But instead, you chill with the second gentleman and take phone calls and still have not been down to the border to see what's going on. Yeah, I know you've seen pictures and videos, but does that really give you a sense of what's happening? The emotional attachment to what's happening? No, it does not. It does not. Because even though what's happening in Israel right now is horrible and it's scary and people are dying, we don't have the same emotional attachment that the people in Israel do. Right? It's not the same. So for you to sit there in your high castle and to preach to the people, it doesn't come off very good. It doesn't come off well. It makes you look fake. You don't care. I was going to ask you if you cared, and I have before, obviously. But it's pretty obvious now that you don't care. Those kids in cages, Remember the kids in cages, Kamala? You remember that? Yeah, you don't care about that anymore because there are thousands of kids in cages. And you've not even gone to see them. Somebody just gave them your book. Yeah, that'll help them. That'll help them with being raped. Stop caring about your reputation. Like, have some actual heart and do the right thing. It's so messed up. We are seemingly heading for this dictatorship. I mean, we're already there, right? That's why I'm calling them a regime. That's why I'm calling them dictators, co-dictators. But it seems like we're heading for this totalitarian dictatorship where they control every single bit of your life. Tell you what toothpaste to use, what hairbrush to use, what flour you can go buy, everything. I understand why our law enforcement is helping these migrants. I was questioning this yesterday, trying to figure out while my computer was being just so stupid. I'm sorry. I know that I always announce something's going to come out and then I have to push it back. It's because my computer is considered ancient at this point. I'm low on memory and I have to move things around and try to get things to work. And sometimes it doesn't work in time. But as I was watching the news, gathering material and thoughts, I was thinking, why is our law enforcement just helping these people out of the Rio Grande instead of stopping them and telling them to turn back? And, you know, it's because they don't want them to slip and get swept away and drown, because that's happened multiple times now. And you know, that's really on the Biden regime. It's really on them because they're not deterring people from even starting the journey, actually welcoming them. But how did it get so backwards like this? Like, is it because the amount of people crossing the border and our inability to handle them? Like, it was weird to see these law enforcement officials, a sheriff, the border patrol agents, like they're just helping people out of the river instead of trying to enforce the border like they're supposed to do. But how it got so backwards is because the amount of people crossing right now. We can't handle all the numbers, and our legal system, aka Dictator Joe, saying that law enforcement actually cannot arrest and deport these people. So instead, our law enforcement, these people who have dedicated their lives to the enforcement of our laws, policies, borders, instead they're helping these people illegally enter the United States. They're basically just helping the cartel move these people across the border, because if they don't, they might drown or they'll be reprimanded by Dictator Joe. Like, it should be against every fiber of their professional self, probably not their human self, because we all understand what these people are fleeing from and why they're coming. But it should be against every fiber of their professional self. But they're essentially told they have to step aside. They can't do anything to stop these people from entering the country and do nothing. They are told to do nothing except for take account of these people and escort them to the holding facilities. So instead, the human part of them takes over because the professional part of them is suppressed. It's oppressed by the government, so they help these people break the law. Like, that is so weird to think about. I was just watching people being lifted out of the water by our law enforcement, which a few years ago would not have happened. But I feel for these people. And I'm sure that our law enforcement does too. Because they see what these people are coming from, and they see where they're going, and neither of them are good places. And really, it's not their fault. Yes, these people who are coming from these horrible countries, these horrible situations, they did take actions to come here, and they did illegally cross, but only because the Biden regime sent them the message that they could. So they did. Biden, before he was even president, told people that everyone is welcome. If he is elected president, come on, because everyone is welcome. No matter where they're coming from, what their intentions are, or what kinds of skills or background, if they're cartel members or something, or what education they have. We used to want the best, and obviously there are people who came through who are just skilled workers and mechanics, skilled farmers, people like that. But Biden, no matter who they are, what sort of life they've previously lived, Biden says, come on, man. Come on in. Just make sure you vote for me when I say vote, and that you become a Democrat for life. That's what they want. And we all know it, right? The Democrats' intentions are so clear. So clear. We know why they're letting all these migrants just flow into the country instead of, I don't know, maybe Kamala fixing the problem, or maybe finishing the border wall as a physical deterrent, or possibly even reinstating the stay in Mexico policy. All of these things would stem the flow. And really, the remain in Mexico policy is just people getting to Mexico and staying there, which is, they would be way better off, even though Mexico has its bad areas. They're way better off in Mexico than they were in Colombia and Venezuela and Guatemala. Way better off. That's all that it calls for. And they would be more at home in Mexico, where the language spoken is Spanish. That's their native language. Some of these people do speak English. Some are well educated. But the majority just speak Spanish. Like the majority here just speak English. And they wouldn't feel very at home, even though I'm sure they would still love to be here. They can apply for asylum if they are coming from the countries we deem appropriate for asylum grants. They can apply from Mexico for asylum in the United States. It just doesn't make sense why we need to take all these people at one time. It doesn't make sense, other than the reason that I just stated, that the Dems absolutely believe every single person crossing that border is going to vote Democrat, and that gives them a huge margin on the Republicans, even though the policies that they're trying to put in place, whether these people who are coming here know it or not, the policies the Democrats are trying to put in place are the same policies that these people are fleeing from. It's ridiculous. Just like people coming from California to Texas, or New York to Florida, or New York to Texas, or California to Florida, they're fleeing Democratic policies. These policies that just they're destroying states because people are just leaving in droves because the policies, the officials, are not good. They're bad. They're just not good at their jobs. I don't know if they hit their head when they were little and it just knocked something loose and they can't connect what they're doing to the things that are actually taking place, the policies they're putting into law, connecting that to actually what's happening on the streets. I don't know. But clearly something's wrong. They're not fully understanding the implications that their actions are having. But there's this other question that I wanted to present to you, ask you. Why are we doing nothing to stop the cartels? Just like that cartel member I spoke about. Why are we doing nothing to stop him from bringing the people across the water? I understand that then these people would be in cartel hands. They would be basically in the custody of the cartels. But that would stop the vast majority of people trying to deal with the cartels to get here. Right? That would be a deterrent in itself. Because the cartel's not full of great people. Believe it or not. Not full of great people, no matter what Dictator Joe tells you. They're drug dealers. They're drug pushers. Like the bad drugs. The really bad drugs. Things that aren't legal here. And that's the way you stop the opioid crisis also, by the way. But why are we not doing that? Why aren't we working with Mexico to better their situation? Probably, this is my answer, I don't know. Comment below if you're on YouTube or Rumble. Send me a tweet or parlay me. Give me an answer, because this is my answer. I want to know what you think. Why aren't we working with Mexico to better their situation there? So people who are trying to pass through Mexico stay there, because Mexico has good areas, right? It has good areas. Better than some areas where the cartels are in charge. But why do we never work with Mexico to stop what the cartels are doing? And this is my answer. Probably because if we fix the problems, the Dems and some Republicans will have nothing to argue about. They'll have nothing to talk about when they go on Fox or CNN or MSNBC or Newsmax. They'll have nothing, because there will be no immigration problem. At least not the same, or not how it is now. They'll have nothing for their platforms. Their platforms will just disintegrate, right? Because a lot of their platform is immigration policy, drug policies, which are horrible, by the way. It just doesn't make sense why we wouldn't try to help our neighbor. Because Mexico has been dealing with these cartels for decades. And it wrecks part of their economy. Bottom line, we just have to stop doing nothing and fix the issues. We are so stuck in the bureaucratic ways. Why not just take action, Kamala? You're doing nothing. Talking to the presidents of these countries, it's not helping. I don't know if you've noticed, but the numbers continue to rise. Whether you're lying to yourself about that or not, the numbers continue to rise. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it. You're probably tired of it. I think as Americans, we are all tired of having such an immigration problem and hearing about the atrocities that are being committed on the way from point A to point B upon these people who are just trying to better their lives. We need immigration reform big time. We need to finish the wall, because it was working in the areas that it was put up, and it still is in those areas. They have to go around the wall. And it's not very easy to go over that wall. They had a 30-foot ladder to get over it. And there's not many 30-foot ladders out there. But the administration has to do something. They've got to do something, and they've got to do something quick, because this crisis, it's turning into a global issue. It already has. South Africa, Uzbekistan. We've probably got people coming from China, from other Asian countries, probably India, because of what's going on there now. we need to help people because we're the United States of America, and what we're doing now is not that. I know we're letting all these people across, but the lives that they're going to have when they do cross, even though Biden's giving them $1,400 each, $1,400 each, asylum grants, with the inflation that the Biden administration is causing right now, and how the stock market is currently looking, which is not so great, their lives aren't going to be too great on American standards, by American standards. We've got to do something quick because Kamala, the Border Czar, and Dictator Joe, they're not doing anything. They just aren't. So that's where I'm going to leave it for that. I'm going to take a quick break. You're going to hear an ad, and then I'll be right back. It won't take very long. It's like a minute. I'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, and we are back. If the camera looks like it's in a little different spot, if it's positioned a little bit different, I'm sorry. During the break, my Apple Watch died, and that's how I see the frame of where the camera is pointing. So, I'm sorry if it looks a little off there. That's the reason. That's the reason it looks like I'm in a different spot. I can't see where the camera is pointing right now. I just hoped for the best. So, now we're going to get into the Hollywoke ruining the movie industry, right? Hollywood and NBC and the Hollywood Foreign Press Association just frickin' ruining the movie industry. And I used to love movies. Like, my wife would tell you, Taylor would tell you, I used to love going to see movies. We did it all the time in college. But recently, with COVID and everything, we've not been seeing as many. And now it seems a little bit easier to just not go see movies. But, so NBC has decided to not air the 2022 Golden Globes put on by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. And their claim, the reason they claim to be doing this is because the HFPA, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, has to do work in regards to racial equality / equity and diversity. That's the reason they claim they're canceling the Golden Globes in 2022. They say that they hope to bring them back in 2023. We'll see if that happens. But it's a little bit weird. Let's be honest. I'm all about honesty on this show. Let's be honest. We all know the reason why they canceled the show for next year. The ratings for this year were horrendous in terms of ratings, especially for something like the Golden Globes. In 2021, their ratings fell below 7 million. I was supposed to corrected it down there. That's what happened. They fell below 7 million viewers. And NBC they just don't think that it's worth spending the money to broadcast this to the entire nation and parts of the world because they're not going to get their money back in advertising. That's really the reason why they canceled the Golden Globes. It seems like the Democrats just try to blame literally every single little thing on race, and it's getting so old. If they actually took honest polls, it would show that this racial equality, equity thing, most Americans, they're tired of hearing that they're racist. Because we're not. We're not racist. Most of us. There are a select few who are, and they should be held accountable for whatever actions they take, if they take any. But that's not the reason they canceled the Golden Globes. It's not. They lost over 60% of their audience this year. And you can't blame that on COVID. because you just sit at home to watch the Golden Globes. 60% of the audience. Last year, 2020, during a pandemic, well, actually, it would have been right before the pandemic, but things were starting to kick up. People were getting worried at the time. 18.4 million, which was down from the previous year. 60% of the audience did not tune in. 6.9 million people watched the Golden Globes this year. If this is truly a diversity issue, then why did it take so long? We've heard them talk about diversity for years, right? Why did it take so long for them to stop airing the award show? The Golden Globes and the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, it came out earlier, they don't have a single ethnic minority member, or whatever they call it. They don't have a single minority member in the association. Why did it take them so long to correct their wrongs in this situation? That just doesn't add up. It's virtually see-through. It's basically see-through. We know exactly why they don't want to air the awards. Chances are some other network is just, unless there's some contractual whatever. If there's something in their contract that states no other network can take this on, then no other network will pick this up. But chances are you're going to be able to watch the Golden Globes in 2022. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association did not cancel the Golden Globes. They will still happen. Right? No matter if Tom Cruise turns his in or not, his Golden Globe Awards in or not. Doesn't matter. There will be a Golden Globes next year. Somebody's going to want that little bit of money if it continues trending downward. Now that there has been this sort of news around the Golden Globes, you can probably bet it's going back up. But I'm pretty sure somebody's going to pick that up. Just saying. Also, are they going to... Whoever is hosting, whoever is broadcasting the other award shows, the Grammys, the Emmys, whatever, are those going to be canceled too? I'm just wondering. Like, I'm asking for a friend. Are they going to be canceled too? Because there are also diversity issues in those award shows. So if the Golden Globes are canceled, why wouldn't the others be canceled? It's it's because all of the ratings all the award show ratings have gone down. Like, they're all under 10 million viewers. Think about that. There's like 350 million Americans, probably, somewhere in there. Or 326. I don't know. Doesn't matter. 10 million is the max for this year. 10 million viewers. It's just crazy. That's such a low number when it's something like this. They used to have like 40 million people watching. Average of like 37 million over the years. 6.9 million people watched the Golden Globes this year. It's so low. And it all speaks to people, Americans, just not wanting to be told they're racists anymore. Because it's getting so old. Like, the majority of Americans are not racist. They're just not. We weren't raised that way. No matter what the far left wants you to think. We're just not. But what do y'all think? Tweet me about this. Or parlay me. Leave me a comment below if you're on YouTube or Rumble. Because I care what y'all think about these topics. Like, comment. If you have any idea spurred by the things I'm saying, please relay it to me. Because I want to interact with y'all. That would be fun for me. Right? So please leave a comment. Just tweet or parlay me. Comment on my Patreon posts. Go there if you want to check that out. Because I want to share ideas with y'all. I really do. I really do. But the Golden Globes being canceled next year, they're not canceled. They're not. Somebody besides NBC is going to pick them up. TBS or TNT or somebody. Somebody's picking them up. Even if it goes to like HBO or something. Somebody will air them. They're not going to want to miss out on that money opportunity. Now I'm going to go into a little bit sadder of a topic here, and it's just a really brief thing. I want to offer my thoughts and prayers to those under fire from of Hamas rockets in Israel right now. That situation is so sad. It's so it's a bad situation, and it has been for years. But my thoughts and prayers go out to everybody who is being affected by that right now. My family and myself, we stand with Israel. And we denounce the anti-Semitic rhetoric being propagated by the left during this threatening time to Israelis. Israel has historically, since its founding, been one of our strongest allies. And to have multiple members of the Democratic Party come out and stand for the terrorism that Hamas is a terrorist organization. We have Democrats standing up for that right now. Well, I want to say that we stand with Israel. And so does everyone on the right of the aisle. Because they are an ally, a true ally. And they are under attack right now. If things should escalate further, I would pray and hope that Dictator Biden would help Israel out, because Hamas is killing people. They're being terrorists right now. May God be with all the people whose lives are under threat by Hamas right now. And may God comfort those who've lost loved ones on both sides. Look, civilians never ask for this sort of conflict. Only terrorists want this sort of conflict. And only those in power have the ability to inflict this kind of damage and carnage. And those who started this back and forth, they should be brought to justice in their relative countries. God bless all who've been affected by this. My thoughts and prayers, my family's thoughts and prayers are with Israel, the people of Israel right now, and with those Palestinians who've been affected not unjustly, because Israel has the right to retaliate. And people who are standing up for Hamas, they deserve to be reprimanded, censured, something. Because that's not right. To stand for terrorism, it's not right. God bless everybody who's been affected by that. My heart is heavy for those people. It's a bad situation, and it's probably only going to get worse over the coming days. Well, everybody, that is it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on the relative platforms, of course. Hit that notification bell on YouTube, because, eventually they're not going to like this podcast very much. They don't tend to see things the same way that you and I do. Please share this. Really do. Share it with your friends and family, because they're going to trust your word about this podcast more than they'll trust mine, even though I think this is a great podcast and a great show. I think we are going to the moon, like Elon Musk would say. We are going to do big things. And so if you would just hit that share button, share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I don't care. Just share it with your family, because I need the help. I need the word to get out there. I'm doing what I can. I would really, really, really appreciate it if you would help me out. Just to reiterate it, if you appreciate what I'm doing here at the Political Millennial, please consider supporting the podcast on Patreon. I just started this adventure, right? And as you can imagine, the sponsorships, they're not rolling in yet like I need them to. So please, if it's weighing on your heart to support the cause, to help bring young people back to common sense thinking, you can help support that idea on Patreon. You can also help support that idea and this mission on Anchor.fm. You can find the link to my Anchor profile, which is the site that this podcast is actually anchored in, right? It's supported on. That's where this podcast is housed. That's what I'm getting at. That's where the platform is that I upload everything to, and it sends it out. It's owned by Spotify, but you can also contribute there, and I would greatly appreciate any contributions. I really would, and I will say thank you if anybody does contribute. I really will, but no pressure. Obviously, I don't want y'all to feel pressured to do that, because I'm here for my mission, and if you would like to share that mission with me, please do. I will welcome it. I really will, and I will be so appreciative. Please follow me on Twitter and Parler, at Connor Womble. That's an ER in Connor. And you can also follow the podcast account on Twitter and Instagram at Polly_millennial with one N. Guys, that's it for this one. That's it. That's episode 15. We are making headway. We're going to make a difference in this world. Thank y'all so much for watching and listening. I will see you next episode.